So what does a player like Max, how does he really help the Atlanta squad?
Yeah, it's one of those unsung hero kind of plays on the Atlanta Hustle. Everybody talks about the Matt Smiths, the Dylan Tennells, the MVPs, whatnot, making giant throws or making big skies or bids for discs. But the buck stops at your handlers and on your resets and just keeping things consistent. Those big plays don't happen unless he sets you up. So
definitely. I think we have a really exciting game ahead of us. It seems that the Hustle were blowing some bubbles on the sideline here, really trying to get amped up, get that energy going.
Maybe that wind gauge, too. You really tell which direction it's blowing.
You can see which direction the wind is blowing by where the bubbles are blowing. So Atlanta will start with the first pull. That first pull is up. Dallas set to receive. Casey Hogg catches that first disc of the game. He centers to Chris Mazer. Mazer swings across to Brandon Malachek. Malachek back to Mazer. The Hustle really playing the passing lanes right now, counting the number of receptions so far. Maybe some type of zone. Jimmy Mickle, hammer over the top for Kai Marshall. Kai does catch that. He gets it back to Mazer. Mazer with the fake, looking for Malachek. Quick dish to Malachek. Malachek then back over the top to Mickle to the near sideline. Mickle surveying his options. Decides to dump it to Mazer. Mazer back to Mickle. Back to Mazer. Atlanta now playing a little bit more handler defense while still in the passing lanes upfield. Malachek sees Marshall in the end zone, and that's your first score of the game.
Atlanta really playing underneath on those. Dallas going into a headwind there. Throws over the top can be really hard, but the only throws that Dallas took over the top of the zone on that point, the guy was open by at least 15, 20 yards. So as risky as it may be, their throwers are talented. They'll put this that you can make a play on, and when the guy just has to wait for it for 5 seconds, generally he's going to be able to come up with it.
That was kind of an interesting defensive look that Atlanta was playing. It seemed like they were counting the passes, so maybe shifting into a different defensive set after a certain number of completions.
Yeah, a lot of times when you run a zone against a team, it's kind of a mental game. When you start counting every throw, people just assume that, they're going to transition out of this kind of a thing, when really they don't have to transition out of a zone, especially if they're doing nothing but resets.
And Matt Bennett now with the pull for Dallas. Max Leonard to pick up, disc rolls out the back of the end zone underneath our boundary fence. Thank goodness for disc runners.
It's not a perfect fence, but they do have to take it on the back line as a result.
Dalton Smith on the mark for Dallas.
Hey, Thor, we're going to talk to Sterling real quick.
Certainly dangerous territory, having to go throughout the full end zone. But Atlanta works it out on the far sideline.
Josh deeper, Josh deeper. Josh deeper. Hey, we good, Atlanta, we're fine.
Matt Smith gets it back to Max Leonard. Leonard over the top. Finds Tennell. Dylan Tennell, the 2016 AUDL MVP. Tennell then back to Leonard. Leonard over to Olsen. Really cycling through Leonard here on the every other. Zach Riggins almost there, but Taylor ends up with the reception. Back to Tennell. Floating to Vickroy. And Vickroy finds an uncovered
I believe that's Matt Smith.
Yep, for the goal.
Just too many switches on Dallas. It's one of those things. If you play under and know that the offense is going into that headwind, often enough you end up getting sucked under too much. You're just too far off your guy. Dallas is a really heads-up team in terms of field awareness and helping out your teammates, and they'll look to do switches on defense, but sometimes, especially once it gets down to small ball, you get close to the end zone, you just lose that guy. And what's unfortunate there is that was a front corner of the end zone. That is the front door to the house. You can't let that go uncovered, and unfortunately he just lost that guy. And Matt Smith, being as small as he is really good at finding that space.
Certainly a very squirrely player there, but that front cone on the force side, certainly the most valuable spot on the field. So Atlanta will now pull out the far end zone, or far sideline, I should say. So Dallas will take it from the brick mark.
Footwork, footwork, footwork.
Brandon Malachek with a disc for Dallas. Boking on the mark for Atlanta. Jimmy Mickle kind of looking for that deep shot, but ends up swinging it over to Mazer. Mazer now to Slack. Thomas Slack now with the high release to Malachek. Malachek to Mazer. Mazer now with the flick. Tipped out of the way.
And just kind of that switchy wind, like 9 times out of 10, 0 wind. That pass just sits nice in the space for Abe Coffin, and they've done it previously this season, but got kind of stuck coming back towards the defender there.
Christian Olsen with the block for Atlanta. JP Burns now with the disc over to Sun Choi. Choi over now to Paul Lally. Up the line to Williams. Williams then to Burns. Burns surveys across the field to Lally. Lally unguarded. Mickles sealing off that break side. Olsen to Choi. Choi then over to Olsen. Olsen handler movement back and forth with Choi. To Burns, back to Choi. Burns not in on that front cone. Back out to Choi. Choi there on that far sideline. But ends up finding Lally.
It's kind of interesting looking at Atlanta's D-line playing offense there. It almost looked like they were just unsure of themselves, like they didn't expect necessarily to get the disc where they did. And once they got close to the end zone, cutters weren't making cuts from the stack. They a little delayed on looking at your reset. They just kind of looked a little out of place, like, well, we didn't expect this. What's going on? They ended up finishing the point, and Dallas needs to get back on the horse to finish the game. But at the same time, like, Atlanta got that one.
That is, so as hesitant as Atlanta was, they still managed to get the first break of the game. So Dallas O-line walking back. And so the Hustle now lead the Roughnecks 2-1, 8:07 left in the first quarter.
Dallas getting off to another one of their slow starts. This has happened before, and they've won games doing this, so see how it goes.
It's really the mental factor at that point. Malachek coming over to the disc. He's centering to Mazer.
Back up.
Mazer to Mickle. Mickle on the near sideline. Fakes overhead. Goes for the easy pass to Mazer. Mazer swings around to Malachek. Malachek back to Mazer. Great fakes over to Mickle. Mickle to Slack. To Smith. Dallas really taking advantage of some of those open poaches. Looking for Coffin. Coffin goes for the pass attempt.
Looks like he might have got hit in the side, possibly a bruise on the side of his ribs.
Daniel Sperling there with the D for Dallas. There was a whistle on the play. Coffin going ahead and taking the injury. Matt Bennett coming on.
It's kind of an unfortunate nature of that play. Coffin trying to read the disc, can't see what's behind him. The defender being aggressive to make the play, but you do have to be more heads up about who you're trying to get the D from. And you know, the defender can see the field in that instance, and I feel like that was a bit too aggressive to try and get the D rather than not get the foul.
So Dallas will get the disc on the goal line as a result of that foul call. Mazer now faking backhand, ends up finding Dalton Smith to tie the game 2-2.
And we see Atlanta defense on that point starting out again in their zone. it's kind of a weird switchy wind somewhat. The only consistent part about it is it's blowing from our stand across to the other side of the field. Whether it's a headwind or tailwind going either direction is kind of up in the air right now. But one of the big things that Jacksonville did against Dallas in the game that they beat Dallas in was make the deep shots difficult. If Dallas can't get into a flow, can't get into a 4-shot score, sometimes they get flustered, sometimes they get hesitant or whatnot. You see there, Jimmy was very upset with himself taking that shot over the top to Coffin. Knows he doesn't necessarily need to take that throw. Yes, it was easy to get your resets, but at the same time, it makes Dallas take a few more seconds every point.
And those are certainly the additional seconds that the Hustle are looking for. But Dallas now on defense. Pulls goes up to Atlanta. Tennell now in the center of the field. He finds Anders Olsen. Olsen with the flick up. Jay Frood says, not today with that interception. Frood now over to Bennett. Back to Frood. Frood over to Kevin Christian. A little give and go there between Frood and Christian. Now to Bennett. Bennett over to Holleran. Holleran swings around to Matt Hudspeth. Now Reed Bacon with the disc. Right handler fake there from Bennett. Bennett with the moderate range flick, looking for Bacon. Not quite there. I think the stall count was getting high, so
it looked playable as far as a catch, but he might not have been able to get it in bounds.
Tennell now picking up for Atlanta on the far sideline. Clutton there on the mark. Swings around to Taylor. Over to Olsen. Olsen backhand huck. Max Leonard unguarded with that layout grab. On the goal line, finds Tennell, back to Leonard for the score.
Unfortunate for Dallas on that one, getting that break mark swing pass coming across the field just opens up this wide open huck down this backhand sideline. And with that wind, a backhand down the sideline is going to sit up really nice for that receiver just making the break down the field. He's unguarded because everybody else is playing on the opposite side of the field. After they get next to the goal line, you saw Reed Bacon switch off to try and peel for any defender or any offensive guy going line strike, but just didn't end up being a very good switch overall to cover that front corner.
Great layout grab there from Max Leonard, and then good follow, like you would expect nothing less from
that consistent
Tennell.
Player, making sure
Very
they stay
consistent.
in it, right?
Certainly what the Hustle need right now. So they lead Dallas 3-2. 5:44 left in the first quarter. Dallas O-line back on the field. Malachek now to pick up.
Yes, Sean, hot Sean.
No, thanks for catching that, Max.
Chris Mazer then from the 1 coming out for the pass. Finds Mickle. Mickle now with the flick huck looking for Coffin. And that is deflected by Christian Olsen.
Another one of those big over-the-top shots just falling a bit short. That's probably about the third shot Dallas has taken today so far. Didn't work out for him.
Now the Dallas O-line is playing defense. Paul Lally now with the disc. Lally, IO backhand, floats for a long time. We've got a hospital pass set up. Sky Marshall there. Now Abe Coffin on the near sideline. Over the top to Marshall. Mazer now follow. Marshall across the end zone. Finds Thomas Slack for the score.
Honestly, that's just Dallas taking advantage of a giant cluster of confusion. You see on that jump ball, it hung up in the air so long, there were about 6 white jerseys sitting underneath it. But when you don't get it with that many jerseys that far up the field, Dallas is like, all right, just fan out, spread out. People will be open on this transition if we just look in the first 2 to 3 seconds.
And really good use of full field throws there with those big OI blades.
Mm-hmm.
Good read from Kai Marshall on that sky grab, but then also the around there.
Yeah, the very next throws switched from the middle to this side, to the far side, back over to this side as far as the score. And, I mean, defenses won't expect that in a more windy day like that, especially after that shot went floated so much. But Dallas has the confidence in their throws, and they're going to take those.
Atlanta now with the disc to Nell, centering on the field, fakes a big huck. Instead finds Austin Taylor underneath. Taylor then with the flick huck. Vickroy trying to track it down, but there's a lot of speed on that disc.
And forehands with this crosswind like that, I think it's shifted a bit to be a tailwind for Atlanta right now, and that forehand is going to cut through it and just go fast. Backhand might sit up for you, but that forehand is just going to fly fast.
The downwind flick is a tough throw. Dallas now with the disc. Jay Frood puts up the backhand huck, looking for Ben Lewis. For a second, you thought Lewis might try and throw a greatest there or something, but...
They call him eBay because of his bids.
Now, Tanel moving to the other side of the field, looking for Anders Olsen. He completes it. Swings around. Now Tanel over to Taylor. Matt Bennett with the bid, but not quite there. Anders Olsen with the score.
And you see just another shot from Dallas. Like the man is open. Whenever they've taken these deep ball shots that just hang up a little bit, the guy is open. It's not a bad look, but they have been caught off guard on a switching wind or a poached defender that they didn't necessarily expect to be there. Working the underball has done pretty well for them so far, but every turnover has been on an away shot so far.
So Atlanta is still with the lead by 1, 4-3, 3:33 left in the first quarter. Dallas now to receive the pull. Kyle Stapleton to pull for Atlanta. Malachek now to receive for Dallas. He finds Mazer. Mazer back to Malachek, back to Mazer. Over to Coffin. Dishes back to Mazer, to Coffin. Push pass there to Malachek. Uncovered Jimmy Mickle with the disc. Now covered, finds Casey Hogg. Hogg then back to Mickle. Mickle looking, scoobers over to back to Hogg. Dishes back to Mickle. And Kai Marshall unguarded, but it doesn't appear that Dallas is going to hit that at the moment. Slack now in the center of the field, back to Mazer. Mazer over to Mickle. Mickle then to Hogg. Hogg over to Mazer, who drops the pass in the end zone. After working it up
This
the
just
whole
angled
field.
slightly like upward and away from him. Hard to get your hands around it if it coming like a wind gust drops it.
And now Atlanta working it up, full field. Big huck goes up there to Sperling. Sperling catches it right outside the end zone. And there is a foul called on the play, so Sperling will take the disc in the center of the goal line. Double teamed with Marshall and Hogg. Dishes it over, and that's another break. Sam Gaynor with the score.
Atlanta getting that kind of a break right there. Talked about them being an X-factor team. They're looking for something to play off of, some kind of energy. Defensively, they came out again in that zone, and it just shows they want to try and make this as dramatic as Dallas wants it to be. It's either going to be the most boring game you'll watch because Dallas will throw 5-yard passes all the way up the field, or Dallas is going to take those shots over the top, which they've turned over 4 or 5 times so far as early as the game is. And it's going to be a mental war of attrition for Dallas to consistently score. And then on defense, they're going to have to find a decent flow, because usually you won't be able to set that zone if you were on an offense and you transition unless you have a shot out the back of the end zone where you have 20, 30 seconds to set something up.
So Dallas now on offense. Once again, Malachek to receive. Centers to Mazer. Dallas in a vertical stack. Matt Bennett on the O-line. coming out of the 1. Finds his A&M buddy, Dalton Smith, back to Bennett. Now Mickle in the center of the field. Sees Dalton Smith. A little bit of a different handler look here. Pick called. So Dallas will take a 10-yard penalty. Mickle with the disc, waving arms on the mark there. Kai Marshall now over to Mickle. Less than a minute in the first quarter. Across the field to Smith. Smith dishes to Mickle. Mickle flick over looking for Bennett. Bennett with the impressive roll recovery there.
It looked playable. I thought he had him.
Just right outside the fingertips. So now Atlanta with the disc, 26 seconds left. In the air, Marshall looking for it on defense, just out of the reach of Kelvin Williams. So 21.1 seconds in the first quarter. Dallas now with the scoring opportunity.
Yeah.
Full field to work.
Their O-line still has the opportunity to score.
Matt Bennett now an interesting addition to the O-line here with Mazer. Now the clock starts. IO flick there to Smith. Dalton Smith launches to Jimmy Mickle. It's going towards that far sideline. Can't stay in bounds. Mickle with some impressive air on that attempt, but just too much float on that disc.
There's just so much air underneath it.
8 seconds on the dot for Atlanta. Flick up to Smith, 2 seconds. Smith now with the big backhand. If there is somehow a, nope, and that's the end of the first quarter. Atlanta up by 2, 5-3 over Dallas. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll have the second quarter of play here on DallasRoughnecks.com.
Just stop holding.
And we're back in the Colony at the end of one quarter of play. Dallas is trailing by 2 under, I guess, the Atlanta Hustle. Atlanta Hustle with that 2-point lead. Certainly motivated. You can hear them on the sideline saying 3 more quarters, guys.
3 more quarters, you know, and it's like Tuba Benson was talking about the Jacksonville Cannons. As they were completing quarters, they happen to be either even with Dallas or up on Dallas. They're like, look, guys, you just got to keep believing. And, you know, Atlanta's like 3 more quarters. We played in club tournaments before. We played several doubleheaders across our different games. They're like, we have the legs. We're going to finish this game. They're firing right now. And Dallas, unfortunately, coming out to another slow start. They'll find a solution to their problems. They'll change their game up. They'll figure out what they're messing up. But they need to do it, when they still have time to bring the game back. Right now, there's plenty of time to bring the game back. Halfway through the fourth quarter, you may not have that much of an option.
Still a lot of disc left to be played in this game. But Dallas will start on defense, so they will be pulling to the hustle. Matt Jackson out on the field, remarkable being able to play so soon after having surgery.
Generally a remarkable player regardless.
So true.
We love Matty J.
Matty J, I think he provides a lot of that motivation really to the team. Matt Bennett now with the pull for Dallas.
Another pull rolling out the back. You got to take those on the back line.
So the wind certainly playing a factor today.
Oh, definitely. Oh, good bid. eBay, Ben Lewis.
eBay with the bid. Then Matt Bennett ends up catching that.
Just catching Atlanta, not paying attention. One thing that was interesting watching Atlanta warm up, part of their warm up is playing mini in the end zone with really confined spaces and really tight. So when they have to take the disc on the back line because of these pulls that are doing really well for Dallas, they don't necessarily get too flustered. They don't necessarily feel too confined, and that's a really great asset to have as a team. Unfortunately, might have got too comfortable there. Might not have been thinking that Dallas was coming down as fast because a few of their players were lagging down on the pull. But Ben Lewis is really good at baiting that bid there. And so if you just kind of put it loose thinking there's nobody behind you, all of a sudden he comes flying out of nowhere.
He makes great bids. That's why they call him eBay. Matt Bennett now with that rolling pull, aiming for the far sideline, it seems. Tennell then to pick up for Atlanta. Gets it to Taylor, over to Leonard, over to Vickroy. Vickroy, lots of little fakes and shimmies, and a stall called.
Very aggressive mark by Lewis there.
Certainly, another forced D by Ben Lewis. I think he's fired up. He's a little fired up.
Right? He was really upset he missed last weekend. Got to bring it this weekend.
Definitely so. Matt Bennett now to pick up for Dallas. Dalton Smith also in the backfield. Over to Jay Frood in the center. Frood to Chris Larberg. Larberg to Smith. And that's 2 consecutive breaks for the Dallas D-line.
Starting to get some momentum back. I mean, and that was just really good chemistry between the few players that were involved in that end zone offense for Dallas. You saw Larberg making that backhand fake over to the forehand side. Dalton knows exactly what he wants to do. Both the defenders shift over. It's an easy flip pass. No real mark on because one defender was looking to switch to take the guy that was striking up line, Dalton Smith. The other defender didn't necessarily know that switch was coming. Just read him like a book.
Now with less than a minute so far in the second quarter, we have a tie game, 5-5.
And Dallas on a run.
On a bit of a run, kind of trying to come out fired up in this second quarter. Chris Mazer now to pull for Dallas. And a whistle. Offsides call.
Unfortunate. You get that momentum going for yourselves. Everybody gets really excited wanting to get down on the pole, but an offsides giving them great field position and like letting them set up.
Atlanta now taking the disc at the center of the field. Evan Boking to pick up. Double team there. Over to Christian Olsen. Olsen now to Sun Choi. That's a quick score for Atlanta.
Unfortunate for Dallas. It looked like a little confusion on which direction the mark was forcing, or maybe a little bit too much dependency on the wind to just bank it back into the middle of the field. Defender got a little caught out of position there.
And Atlanta, Kevin Christian coming over for the double team, but Atlanta ends up getting rid of the disc. And Olsen falling as he's throwing that flick, but still had enough accuracy that he found Sun Choi there in the end zone.
And you really see sportsmanship between the players, too. Dallas making clear that they're not bidding towards the offensive player. They're making bids to space, and Atlanta recognizing that, saying, hey, man, great effort. I got the call, don't worry, but way to play the game.
Atlanta now takes the lead again by 1, 6-5, 10:54 left in the second quarter. Casey Hogg now catches the pull for Dallas over to Malachek. Coffin really working underneath, but the flick huck goes deep. Coffin double covered, just out of reach. The double coverage, he was certainly well guarded there.
Looked like Coffin looking for a possible foul call. There was some contact jockeying for position.
Christian Olsen now with the disc over to Sun Choi. Choi swinging around to Paul Lally and does not stay in bounds. That far sideline strikes again.
Pretty consistently. Any big shots that are banking towards that line are going to be flying high.
That sideline seems to be the 8th defender for both teams today. Foot block, but also a whistle. Foul called on Evan Boking. Malachek will take the disc 10 yards ahead, still trapped on that sideline. Swings over to Mickle. Mickle still on the sideline. Signature shimmy out to Malachek. Swinging around to Slack. Slack looking for striking Casey Hogg, and Casey Hogg with the score.
Putting things back together. I mean, you definitely saw a few uncharacteristic throws. That very first initiation when the point first started, Malachek really keying in on Coffin, and when you stare at a guy for a full 6 seconds, almost the entire stall, like the defense starts to notice. They start to see, you know, that's probably who he's going to shoot it to. And the defender who got the D on that huck was not the original defender on Coffin. He was playing back over the top, helping from the break side. So Dallas on that offensive possession, working the ball across the field, getting their reset set up nice and sturdy, and as soon as it swings over to the break side, all the defenders are out of position. They just score easy.
Great continuation cuts there from the Dallas offense to use the full field to get that score. Matt Bennett now with the pull for Dallas. Matt Smith back. He does not catch the pull. Kind of thought he was going to. Now Josh Bush with the disc. Over to Vickroy. Vickroy around to Tennell. Tennell now swings across to Leonard. Back to Tennell. Tennell over to Smith. Smith to Vickroy. Vickroy hammer over the top. And that's out of the reach of Leonard. Matt Jackson was there, close by.
It's another hard read, too. That's another big crossfield over the top, getting the wind, pushing it just 2 inches further than the receiver thought it was going to be. Pop right over his head.
Matt Bennett now picks up for Dallas. Swings to Dalton Smith, who's now in the end zone. Some dangerous territory there. Goes to Smith. Dallas calls a timeout. I suspect they will substitute their O-line onto the field.
Very likely, very likely. One, you're in, you know, you're defending corner. You're on the downwind side. This is the best opportunity for Atlanta to just put pressure on your line. Your D-line's been running defense. They're a little flustered maybe. They didn't necessarily get into their initiation play very well. So there's a little bit of stumbling. The resets between Bennett and Dalton, those guys have been playing together forever. They know exactly what each other wants to do. So they're comfortable resetting, but when you only have 5 yards to gain or lose, like losing in that scenario, switch in the offense, get the throwers. Atlanta, conversely, on this one, Dallas could be giving them an opportunity. You come out with a zone look, you come out with a double team. You do have them in great position for trying to get a backfield turn. So I would suspect Atlanta coming out with some kind of tricky look to throw Dallas off of any initiation that they want to come out of this timeout.
Certainly being trapped on that front corner of the end zone is not favorable field position for Dallas. Thankfully, their O-line is a very skilled handler set. Really skilled across the board, I mean.
Yeah.
Really. But Chris Mazur certainly very talented handler.
And when you're an O-line handler, it's part of the job. You know, this is why you basically get the role, because you will take this job on.
To get untrapped. Parker Bray on the mark for Atlanta. Dallas in a horizontal stack set. Jimmy Mickle, the near side cutter.
Atlanta playing well over the top in the deep space right now with possible lane poaches underneath.
Swings around to Malachek. Malachek finds Coffin. Coffin under to Marshall. Marshall fakes big, sees Jimmy Mickle, short pass. And Jimmy Mickle with the big huck, looking for Kai Marshall, and Kai will stay inbounds for that score.
O-line scoring defensive breaks. Doing very good. You saw Jimmy hold on to that huck for the first probably 4 or 5 seconds of that stall count because he's starting to hold back on those shots. He established the fact that he will take deep shots in the first quarter, but so far a few of those have been turnovers. He wants to make sure it's open. Once Atlanta stopped chasing Marshall, thinking, oh, he's too deep, there's no way Jimmy's going to put it now, that's when you strike. And when we talked about that forehand, cutting the wind, it's going to be a sharper shot than a backhand that's going to sit up for you. So that being, another one of Jimmy's go-to huck throws, it was a perfect opportunity.
Great read there also from Kai Marshall, having to look over his left shoulder there. He gets his second score of the game. And now Dallas is on defense. Ashton Lewis quick down on that pole. He's guarding Max Leonard. Lewis called up from the practice squad last weekend. Atlanta working it up line. Anders Olsen with the disc on the far sideline. Hammers over the top. Out of reach for Tunnell. Lewis tips that down. And now Kevin Christian walking to pick up for Dallas just outside half field. Puts up a big backhand for Jason Holleran, and that is tipped. There are no Dallas players to pick up that trash. Tunnell picks up instead for Atlanta, launches a big flick, looking for Bush. Coast to coast with that score.
And Dylan Tunnell is known for his bomb flicks. Just a big shot right there. We just talked about Jimmy taking that shot on the flick sideline. That wind is going to just not let that sit up, and Dylan just puts it into space. Defenders, they were within decent distance, but they just didn't have an angle to make a play on it. That was a well-placed shot to an open receiver.
Certainly not an easy throw to make with such incredible accuracy. Suppose that's why
and so often.
Right. Consistency. What consistency will do to a team. Quite impressive. Mm-hmm. So the game is back tied 7-7 with 7:15 left to go here in the first half in the Colony, Texas. Dallas O-line set to receive. Lots of float on that pole. Mazer will catch for Dallas. Over to Malachek. Malachek back to Mazer. Can feel the wind picking up as well. Over to Malachek. Backhand to Mickle. Mickle with the point fake. Finds Hogg. Hogg to Coffin. Coffin double team, finds Mickle unguarded. Little give and go action from Coffin. Good break there to Mickle. Mickle then to Malachek. Malachek over to Mazer. To Malachek. Small disc movement. Hogg now dishes over to Coffin. Coffin finds Malachek at the back corner of the end zone. Dallas score.
And another example, we talked about it. Atlanta's going to let Dallas make this as boring or as dramatic as a game as they're going to play. We saw a lot of fakes from Mickle and Malachek and Mazer on that point, looking like, oh, I'm going to take that over the top. Had a couple of Atlanta defenders jump out of the way, and Jimmy pointing over to the left side, throws that IO to an open guy underneath. Maybe it was a little bit of a hot shot, but he had space and found him in there.
Lots of great small passes working there. Lots of patience on the Dallas side. As Brandon Malachek's first goal of the game, first assist also for Coffin. So now Dallas takes the lead, 8-7. 6:22 left in the first half. Matt Bennett now with that pull. It's a roller over to Leonard to Tennell. Tennell over to Smith. Smith to Vickroy. Vickroy, big outside in. Atlanta working it down the near sideline. Push pass from Tennell to Smith for the score.
Unconventional. You talk about consistency, but sometimes it doesn't have to be the standard throw to make that work. Very it's innovative right there with the push pass, especially in this wind. People did not expect you to throw those kind of throws.
And with as much height that Tennell has, that push pass can stay over the top, I suppose, of other defenders there. So Atlanta keeping it interesting. Tie game, second quarter. Just under 6 minutes left to play. Dallas O-line back on the field.
We'll see if they can make it interesting or play as boring as they want to be consistently scoring.
Sometimes boring ultimate is the best ultimate.
Too many coaches use that. Too many coaches.
I've maybe said that a time or two as well in my coaching days. Malachek now with the disc for Dallas. Swings it around to Mazer. Mazer back to fellow redhead Malachek over to Coffin. Coffin fakes under, finds Mickle. Little trip up there from Mazer, but he is able to get open and gets that underpass. Flick up to Coffin. Coffin reads underneath, around to Slack for the score.
And Thomas Slack being that guy that's always following the play, always finding himself open because people think that they can make a play on the swing to Mazer. They think they can make a play on the under to Coffin. And Slack always finds that space. Another small guy using the fact that people don't necessarily see him coming or don't necessarily see they need to be peeling off to him, and he just gets it easy.
And Coffin wide open there for that score. Coffin really working that underneath a lot for Dallas.
He's definitely a workhorse for the O-line. He's an extremely fast guy. His throws are nice and clean, especially in a wind like this. You need those clean throws. He's had to put a bit of an angle on it when he's been double-teamed a few times in their zones and whatnot, but at the same time, he knows exactly how to put it nice and easy, make it very catchable in this gusty wind.
The wind certainly picking up. Tennell picks up for Atlanta. Over to Smith now with the disc. Vickroy, flick huck, looking for Tennell, guarded by Dalton Smith. Vickroy with that extension for the score.
That inside-out forehand just riding the wind. That's the one time that a forehand with this kind of a right-handed forehand with this kind of a crosswind is going to kind of sit up. He puts the inside-out angle and it just kind of rides it the entire time. Smith was actually within defensive position, but he just cannot get an angle to get it before Tennell does. And Tennell does a really good job of running a route, cutting off Smith's ability to make up that position, to make up that space. And it's just really well played on both sides, really.
And Tennell really playing in that handler spot. So how does that unpredictability of then running deep kind of create some interesting moments?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like Malachek scoring a goal or two when you just kind of, everybody plays under that guy. Everybody just assumes their main shooter is going to come back for the disc. But they do have a couple other guys, especially in a windy day, can put it.
The game is now tied at 9s. 5:13 left in the first half. Mazer picks up for Dallas over to Coffin. Coffin dishes back to Mazer. Mazer scooper around to Malachek. Malachek over the top, sees Casey Hogg in the end zone. And Casey with the score.
Definitely a miscommunication there on the Atlanta defense, especially that side of the field. If you're going to end up accidentally leaving somebody open, it has to be on the break side, like into this wind, right? The wind is acting as your eighth defender in this instance, but that shot was really well placed. We've seen a lot of those shots not go very well, but Dallas is not afraid to put it at a 45-degree angle across the field to gain over the top. I do like how Atlanta, they ran their zone on that particular point, but they haven't been doing it every point. One, you don't necessarily want to run it every time because you want Dallas to have to constantly be switching back and forth in mindsets between, all right, we got to run to get open now versus find the spot. But you don't want to just abandon it, even if they just score in a few throws on that one, because it has gotten you turns.
Joel Clutton now running down first for Dallas. Tennell picks up for Atlanta. Signature flick huck goes up, and that will not stay in bounds. Jason Holleran is there on the disc. Looks like that was intended for Josh Bush.
Little too much bank, gets pushed down by that crosswind and just sort of sits down out of bounds.
Kevin Christian now to pick up for Dallas on that far cone. Little give and goes between Bennett and Christian. Swings across to Holleran. Holleran still in the end zone, but too low for Matt Bennett. Now Atlanta knocking down on that door. Tennell picks up. Lots of ups from that mark from Matt Bennett. Hammer over the top. And Austin Taylor is unguarded and catches his first goal of the game.
Just another of those instances, getting a little overprotective of the front of the house, right? That front attacking corner, you're forcing towards that forehand side. Dylan Tonelli is their main shooter. If anybody's going to put it over the top, it is almost certainly going to be him. And even if the wind is not favorable for it, he will find a way to make that shot, especially with Matt Bennett marking him. Matt Bennett, very talented player, very talented thrower, and a decent defender in his own right, but he only stands so tall. And Dylan Tonell stands significantly taller. He's going to put stuff over the top.
Certainly so. The wind gusts are around 20 miles an hour, which would account for some of the throwing modifications that we've seen so far today. It's tied 10 apiece, 4:03 left to go in the first half. Malachek catches the pole for Dallas, centers it to Mazer. Mazer around to Coffin. Coffin, backhand. Lally had a guarding Mickle. It seems like Olsen got a bit of a hand on that throw.
It might have, but at the same time, it looked like Jimmy was stuttering to come under as that backhand went off. And you saw with this crosswind, it's going to sit up as much as it did. He still had a possibility of making the play, even though he wasn't even cutting when that throw went up.
Boking now with the disc for Dallas. Timeout called. Atlanta. As we suspected on the other timeout, I suspect that Atlanta will be bringing their O-line.
Almost certainly, especially, it's just another example. You had, the Atlanta defender on Jimmy made that bid to just ensure that if there was any way Jimmy could possibly pick that up, they were still going to get the D. And, you got that energy going, you got that intensity going, but then winds gust up to 20 miles an hour. You got this awkward coming out of your end zone. Maybe your defense isn't set up again. Take your time. You've got the timeouts. Use them and set yourself up for success. Conversely, we didn't see Atlanta take advantage of the Dallas timeout. I hope Dallas can take advantage of this timeout to set something up, maybe make an initiation extra difficult. You've got them on the end zone. They've proven they're going to take some shots, but maybe you can bait them into something that they don't necessarily need to take.
It looks like some substitutions have been made on the Dallas side as well. Some of the, I should say, more athletic, could you say such a thing, but a few more of their defensive role players coming out.
Very defensive line. You put Jay Fruit on there, one of the leading defenders in the league right now. You also add some height to it with Kai Marshall and Jimmy staying on the field.
Chris Larberg comes on for Dallas. Another defensive threat there. And then the ever-present defender, the wind. All these gusts coming through. Jimmy and Dylan giving a little bit of a handshake there. Love that spirit of the game.
They may have played together before or seen each other a few times.
Two tall guys who throw a flick huck very well, marking up on each other. 3:23 left in the second quarter. Whistle called. Delay of game penalty against Atlanta. So now they will go back to the center of their end zone because that is a 10-yard penalty. Tennell still with the disc for Atlanta. He sees Taylor. Taylor around back to Tennell. Over to Taylor. Sees Smith. Now Leonard on the far sideline. Looking around for Olsen. Olsen over to Leonard. Vic Roy stretches for that catch. He puts up a flick huck. There's Kai Marshall, but Olsen is able to make that completion. Now over to Smith, to Olsen. That's an Atlanta score.
Looks like Kai Marshall a little just surprised that he didn't get that D, didn't necessarily remember which position he needs to be getting as a defender, protecting the front of the end zone, that front of the house. It was a great grab by Olsen and really good capitalization on, like, I made this grab. I know I don't necessarily need to make the next throw into the end zone. Usually when you make a big grab over that, one, you're the deepest receiver, so there's probably not going to be somebody in front of you. But two, you know, your heart's racing, you're ready to go, okay, just get a reset to somebody, and then I can start running again. Like, right now I need to capitalize on the fact I have tons of energy. Let me get going again. Takes his reset pass and goes strike right to the front corner. Atlanta loves that front corner shot.
So Atlanta's taken the lead once again, second quarter, 2:19 left, 11-10 over Dallas. Dallas bringing their O-line, Mickle and Marshall, staying on the field from last point. Malachek catches the pull for Dallas. Boking close by. Mickle catches the disc. High release there. Back and forth between Malachek and Mickle. Now sees Coffin. Coffin with the sort of double teamed, but goes back to Mickle. Atlanta playing those lanes. Now Casey Hogg with the disc. Mark really following the pivot around rather than a specific force at times, it seems. Mazer faking around. Count is getting high. He finds Thomas Slack, but Gaynor with the D. Now Bray around to Boking. Boking swings around to Turner. Turner now double teamed by Dallas. Finds Bray. And there's a layout D from Thomas Slack.
Thomas Slack, one of those guys that will get it back for you if he was involved in the turn. That turnover that he was involved in was not his fault. Gaynor is significantly taller than him, and that pass floated up for Gaynor to get. But Thomas Slack getting it back because he is wanting to win this game.
Great defensive play there from Slack. Jimmy Mickle now with the hammer to Abe Coffin. Coffin catches that pretty easily. Sees Slack nearby. Underneath to Mazer, dishes back to Slack. Over to Mickle. Mickle double teamed around then to Malachek. Malachek over to Mazer. Mazer sees Marshall. And that pass was out of the reach of Marshall, who is so tall.
Mazer kicking himself for that one for sure. Did not expect that wind to gust a little bit and take it over Kai Marshall's hands. Looks like a timeout call of some kind.
I didn't hear a whistle, but it appears a timeout was called.
Everybody walking off the field. I believe it's a timeout call.
Very, very likely. 26.4 seconds in the first half. Atlanta leading by 1, 11-10 over Dallas.
And we see Atlanta doing that zone defense again. Maybe it was because it was only a few seconds left in the quarter, in the half, but they're really playing underneath and making Dallas look over the top. Dallas, conversely, with their receivers, you know, especially in a gusty wind, it's really easy for your up-top receivers to get sucked under thinking, well, we got to keep passes short. We got to play our more consistent game. But as that deep offensive look, you have to spread the field. You have to be deep. And once they started doing that, that was when Coffin gets open for that Jimmy Hammer over the top, because Coffin's on the far sideline. I believe Slack was deep on this sideline. It just opens up. Not only does the defender have to cover you, 60 yards potentially in the deep space, but also 50 yards field width. So where does he go? What does he even prioritize?
26.4 seconds left. Not a lot of time, but enough for Atlanta to work it up the field a little bit. Dylan Tennell picks up, doing a little interpretive dance of some sort, it seems like. Glad he's enjoying himself.
Making sure he is not going to delay the game again.
Getting his dancing out of the way to avoid any delay of game.
I mean, if you're dancing with the ref, he can't call you on it, right?
Dalton Smith on the mark. Smith been matching up on Tennell so far. Activation there, a little bit of diamond cut. Tennell instead swings over to Leonard. Leonard with a big huck. Jay Frood there tips it out of the way. 17.3 seconds. The clock stopped because the disc went on the ground. Mickle picks up. There is a whistle. A little bit of commotion on the sideline with between the staff. There's a Dallas timeout called. 17.3 seconds left.
I was going to say,
almost feels like the end of a basketball game with all the timeouts.
Well, I mean, you only get the timeouts per half. You got to use them when you have the opportunity. 17 seconds left. There's not going to be too many more opportunities just yet.
So now if you're Dallas, trailing by 1, what do you really need to do here, Paul, to take it to the half tied up?
Well, Dallas has definitely made a point in practices and when talking to their players about ensuring that you are the team that scores last in any given quarter. Effectively, whether you start on defense or start on offense, if you are the team that scored last, you get essentially half of a break just by being the team that scored last. You do that at the end of every quarter, and technically you've earned your team effectively 2 full breaks, which can win you the game. We've seen it in previous games across the season and across last season, and so that has been an emphasis on Dallas so far. They might look to take it. I mean, obviously they're going to look to try and score before the end of the quarter, but at the same time, it's one of those you have to prioritize. Don't let Atlanta finish this game or finish this half with a score.
So Brandon Malachek now picking up the disc for Dallas. You have Matt Bennett as the other handler back. A horizontal stack with a little bit of a isolation on Mickle and Frood, it seems.
Definitely bracketing those two. But you see Atlanta mostly playing over the top, looking to help on any given streaker, probably fearing Muffin's bomb shots.
Muffin certainly full of those bomb shots. Sean Sears on the mark for Atlanta. Abe Coffin catches underneath. He gets it over to Mickle. You have Frood and Marshall in the end zone. Now Bennett with the disc over to Smith. 5 seconds left. Hammer goes up. There is not a receiver there as time expires, and Dallas will take the half, trailing by 1. Atlanta with the lead. We will take a break, but when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about what to expect in this second half. I am Emmy Fitzgerald with Paul Burt here. You're watching DallasRoughnecks.com.
Early recognition is critical teaches middle school PE classes about ultimate frisbee and cancer symptom awareness.
We're a registered nonprofit that advocates for an active, healthy lifestyle, body awareness, and speaking up if something is wrong.
Skills that, when it comes to cancer, can help save a life. Ultimate is a fast-paced team sport that's self-refereed, non-contact, and co-ed.
Spirit of the game is the foundation of Ultimate. That means we communicate respectfully, we're fair-minded, and we enjoy the game.
Ultimate is accessible to everyone. All you need is a frisbee and some friends. Our team of coaches is made up of experienced and passionate leaders from the Ultimate community.
We teach kids that playing fair is more important than winning.
We can come to your middle school and run your PE classes for the day. And if we're not in your area yet, we'll send you our clinic in a box, where we give you the resources to run your own.
Ultimate Frisbee is one of the fastest growing sports in the world.
Teachers and parents love Ultimate Frisbee. We are Eric!
And we want to work with you and your school.
Early recognition is critical teaches middle school PE classes about ultimate frisbee and cancer symptom awareness.
We're a registered nonprofit that advocates for an active, healthy lifestyle, body awareness, and speaking up if something is wrong.
Skills that, when it comes to cancer, can help save a life. Ultimate is a fast-paced team sport that's self-refereed, non-contact, and co-ed.
Spirit of the game is the foundation of Ultimate. That means we communicate respectfully, we're fair-minded, and we enjoy the game.
Ultimate is accessible to everyone. All you need is a frisbee and some friends. Our team of coaches is made up of experienced and passionate leaders from the Ultimate community.
We teach kids that playing fair is more important than winning.
We can come to your middle school and run your PE classes for the day. And if we're not in your area yet, we'll send you our clinic in a box, where we give you the resources to run your own.
Ultimate Frisbee is one of the fastest growing sports in the world.
Teachers and parents love Ultimate Frisbee. We are Eric!
And we want to work with you and your school.
Twice the Ice is a proud sponsor of the Dallas Roughnecks, with many convenient locations in the area, and just like our name says, we offer twice the amount of ice sold at other stores. Delicious, fresh ice delivered on demand 24/7 in a bag or in your cooler, as Spikezilla demonstrates, or in your bath for those aching muscles. We've always got your ice, and always at a price that beats the competition. Twice as nice. Delivery services are also available. Check us out at besticetogo.com and enjoy the rest of the game. Twice the Ice is a proud sponsor of the Dallas Roughnecks, with many convenient locations in the area, and just like our name says, we offer twice the amount of ice sold at other stores. Delicious, fresh ice delivered on demand 24/7 in a bag or in your cooler, as Spikezilla demonstrates, or in your bath for those aching muscles. We've always got your ice, and always at a price that beats the competition. Twice as nice. Delivery services are also available. Check us out at besticetogo.com and enjoy the rest of the game.
This piece with Eric is amazing to me. It's right in line with what we think is critical for kids, and that is to know their bodies.
The kids have really gotten into having speakers here that aren't just their teachers.
And I think the clinicians did a fantastic job. All the kids were engaged, none of them were distracted. They seemed to get into it right away.
I just want to reach out to Eric and tell him, thank you for coming and sharing the message that our kids can speak up. Early recognition is critical, and I look forward to doing more things with Eric in the future.
It's been great for us as a staff and for our students to experience the message you guys have, and highly recommend it for any school that has the opportunity.
I loved that you guys talk about cancer awareness, and it's more about body awareness and knowing their own bodies.
And I think ERIC is a wonderful way to bring this into school. You come with a complete program.
The information is good. It's presented in a very professional way. The instructors do an excellent job.
I think the kids overall had a great time. I can see from their responses that they want us to get some more ultimate discs in the school, and that we'll be playing all the way into the spring and summer.
We really appreciated you coming out. We love the message you guys send.
Yeah, thank you for coming out.
Thank you, Eric, for coming out to the Pittsburgh area. It's a great experience for our kids.
Thank you for sharing your message with the kids. We really appreciate the energy that you've brought, and I really encourage anybody else who might be interested in this program to bring them on in.
Dallas takes possession, looking for the tie. And it was hit off the hands of Chris Larberg and caught by Zach
What does the most experienced advertising agency look like? Miller's senior staff brings an average of 18 years of experience to each meeting. 18 years. We know what works and what doesn't. Media and digital plans based on proven past performance. Creatives that sell first and never worried about awards or accolades. An account service that can lead your business based on 18 plus years of success. Our team is ready to join your team.
This piece with Eric is amazing to me. It's right in line with what we think is critical for kids, and that is to know their bodies.
The kids have really gotten into having speakers here that aren't just their teachers.
And I think the clinicians did a fantastic job. All the kids were engaged, none of them were distracted. They seemed to get into it right away.
I just want to reach out to Eric and tell him, thank you for coming and sharing the message that our kids can speak up. Early recognition is critical, and I look forward to doing more things with Eric in the future.
It's been great for us as a staff and for our students to experience the message you guys have, and highly recommend it for any school that has the opportunity.
This piece with Eric is amazing to me. It's right in line with what we think is critical for kids, and that is to know their bodies.
The kids have really gotten into having speakers here that aren't just their teachers.
And I think the clinicians did a fantastic job. All the kids were engaged, none of them were distracted. They seemed to get into it right away.
I just want to reach out to Eric and tell him, thank you for coming and sharing the message that our kids can speak up. Early recognition is critical, and I look forward to doing more things with Eric in the future.
It's been great for us as a staff and for our students to experience the message you guys have, and highly recommend it for any school that has the opportunity.
Back, we're at halftime in the Colony. Welcome back. We're at halftime in the Colony where Dallas trails the Atlanta Hustle 11-10. I'm Emmy Fitzgerald alongside Paul Burt. And Paul, what does Dallas really need to do here in the second half to take the lead and win the game?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it being a bit of a war of attrition, both mentally and physically today, because of the wind conditions, because the sun kind of beating down on you, especially for Atlanta being their second day on the drive. Dallas needs to recognize that and needs to understand in the second quarter, they came back a bit. Like, they gained 1 point back from being down by 2. Now they're down by 1. That can continue to slow ball, continue to build more points and more, make up back this game.
And then from the Atlanta side, their biggest opponent right now certainly their legs and any fatigue that might set in. So if you're Atlanta, if you're Greg Swanson, head coach of Atlanta Hustle, what do you tell your team to kind of keep their spirits up?
I mean, generally running those kind of huddles, just seeing them on the sideline, they take a couple of strategic moments. They think about 1-2 different things, not too many things that they make your mind think about, but they keep it loose. Like, these guys are out here blowing bubbles. They're out here throwing around a tennis ball with a little sticky catch mitt. They are keeping it loose, making sure that they're having fun, playing the game. You don't get too bogged down with, man, we're tired, man, it's the second day of the trip. And, they can keep it loose, they can keep it energy.
And certainly kind of a tangled mess in the South Division of the AUDL between Jacksonville, Raleigh, and Dallas. Raleigh with the top spot. So if you're Dallas, what is that game-winning scenario now? What does that look like for the rest of the season?
Well, unfortunately for Dallas, the biggest factors about them taking the top of the division again, as far as the rankings are concerned, is a lot out of their hands. They do need to win out, which includes today. But in order for Raleigh to drop down from the top spot, Raleigh has to lose another game, and Dallas does not play them for the rest of the regular season. So we'll see how that plays out.
Dallas has already played Raleigh twice, one here at home and then last week on the road. Jacksonville and Raleigh will play each other 2 more times this year. So far, Raleigh has won both of those meetings.
And they've both been in Jacksonville, too. I believe the next 2 encounters between those 2 teams will be on Raleigh's home turf, where they have a great crowd. It's a big atmosphere. They get really loud. And they're an emotional team, so anything that gets them going, gets them driving, is well in their favor. And Jacksonville needs to be able to overcome those conditions.
Certainly. So the playoff ramifications for that, if Dallas remains in the 3rd spot, that means that they will have a play-in game against the 2nd seed in the South Division, and then the team sitting in the 1st position gets a first-round bye. So that's essentially one more game that Dallas has to play, and may not even be in Dallas.
It's very possible, and it's one more game. You don't think it's going to take your legs out or whatnot, but as it stands right now, if the seedings currently stood for the rest of the season, that game would likely be against Jacksonville in Jacksonville. Jacksonville's a physical team. You never know what you're going to come out of that game with. They're going to fatigue you. They're going to bump into you, and hopefully Dallas can persevere on that one.
Certainly. So the second half is now underway here in the Colony 5-Star Sports Complex. Dallas with the disc, Jimmy Mickle for Dallas. Abe Coffin now double-teamed. Finds an unguarded Brandon Malachek. Mickle over to Mazer. To Coffin, to Mazer. A little give-and-go action there between Mazer and Coffin. Coffin still kind of in an every other, really working those unders today. Jimmy Mickle now with the disc, back to Malachek. Interesting zone look here from Atlanta. Dalton Smith now. Another ginger. Oh, so many gingers on this O-line. Back to Dalton Smith. The Smith-Mazer connections down that far sideline. Scoobers over the top. First score of the second half, Smith to Coffin.
And to throw back to a point we made previously in the broadcast, two of the most important players for offense for Dallas on that point were 2 players that you didn't say their names at all. Thomas Slack and Kai Marshall were in the deep space, spread wide, spread deep. You see Dallas work the disc, 5-6 yard passes all the way down that far sideline, and that's because Kai Marshall is sitting close to the end zone on that side. Atlanta knows they can shoot to that guy. It's on that side that they're going to take that shot. And as a result, defenders cheat back. Guys are open streaking across the field, and it just works out nice, boring ultimate, but consistent and easy throws.
And Dalton Smith certainly maintaining his patience there, being double-teamed right outside the end zone, goes to the upside-down throw instead, finds Abe Coffin. Matt Bennett now pulling for Dallas. It's a roller out the fence. Atlanta will take it from the brick mark. Dylan Tennell appears to be with the disc to start the point. We're tied at 11. Chris Larberg, Jimmy Mickle double teaming Tennell. Tennell finds Bray. Bray now around to Bush. Bush up to Olsen. Interception, Ben Lewis. Matt Jackson now dishes over to Larberg. Larberg to Frood. Frood, backhand, too high. Ben Lewis trying for the greatest.
A greatest back into that direct wind. It's going to be really hard, even if you got a grip on that, to put a Frisbee that's going to sit.
Tennell picks up again for Atlanta. Atlanta trying their initiation cuts early. Gets Bush. He bobbles but maintains possession. Over to Tennell. Tennell swings around to Bray. Bray over to Vickroy. Vickroy double teamed, finds Bray. Bray under to Olsen. Too high, outside of the reach of Bray. Jay Frood picks up for Dallas. Over to Larberg. Striking, backhand, score.
Just quick transition offense from Dallas. Had two guys that were really hungry, wanted to get a break back, know they have to generate some points for their team to get back in this game. And they made Atlanta work. Atlanta turns it over in the backfield. They're a little bit down on themselves. Let's try and push the issue. Let's push them to make them have to cover us within the first 2 seconds after turning it over.
Good heads up D from Dallas there. They take the lead, 12-11, 9:30 left to go in the third quarter. Kevin Christian now with the disc. He'll pull for Dallas. The wind is not consistently windy, but certainly gusty. When it gusts, it's pretty strong.
Oh, yes. And, I mean, those are some of the worst wind conditions that you could ask for an Ultimate Disc game, because if it's consistently 20 miles an hour, you can adjust your throws. If you threw a good throw for that 20-mile-an-hour wind and then all of a sudden it gusts to 25, now that throw's terrible.
Dylan Tennell now with the disc. Not a lot of terrible throws from this guy. He puts up a flick huck. That's floating. Olsen going towards the back cone, and he caught that disc. Anders Olsen.
An excellent read by Olsen coming in and get, that disc is trailing away from him as he gets the grab. Holleran had decent position defensively, but since it just ended up directly over Holleran's head almost, he couldn't actually get an angle when he bid. And Olsen, with those two hands, make sure he comes down with it, while Holleran just trying to knock it out, didn't actually come down with it.
Anders Olsen, the younger brother of Christian Olsen on the Hustle team. You saw in the highlight, running onto the field to congratulate his brother. Both from the Emory Juice program they have there. So we're tied now, 12-12. Paul Lally's pulling for Atlanta. 9:18 left in the third quarter. That pull lands almost exactly at half field. Brandon Malachek to pick up.
No round. Yes, Lally. Yeah!
There's a foot block there on that pass. Sun Choi now double teamed for Atlanta. Over around to Boking. Boking to Taylor. Taylor up to Lally. Olsen swings around to Taylor. Now Boking with the disc. Some handler movement. Over the top. Intercepted by Jimmy Mickle. Swings around to Kai Marshall. Marshall finds Malachek.
Lally, on his shoulder, Lally! No big throw, flat. No.
Mickle, great fake underneath, then finds Dalton Smith. Dalton Smith up to Kai Marshall. Abe Coffin now with the disc on the far sideline. Up the line to Slack. Slack about 5 yards outside the end zone. And He dishes it to Dalton Smith for the score.
Thomas Slack actually very consistent with that lefty high release backhand, even into a wind that's going to push that disc towards the sideline. It comes out clean. The defender doesn't expect it, and Smith, who's played with him several times before, totally ready for it. Maybe he has to jump a little bit more than he wanted to, but at the same time knew it was coming and was able to get that disc.
Of course, Thomas Slack and Dalton Smith played together at Texas A&M, Dozen Ultimate, and then also on the HIP club team as well this past season. So now Dallas takes the lead, 13-12, 8:10 left to go here in the third quarter. Matt Bennett to pull for Dallas.
Another roller.
Tanel back with the disc. Underneath to Vicroy. Vicroy flick. Looking for Matt Smith. Just a little too much speed on that.
That's one of those bait angles. It looks like you have a nice inside-out lane to him, but you don't realize the wind is a bit of a tailwind for Atlanta right now. It's just so hard to keep that from going so hot.
Matt Bennett now picks up for Dallas. Sees Christian Larberg. Back to Bennett. Ben Lewis on the ground, back to Matt Jackson. Now Chris Larberg over to Lewis. Lewis to a striking Larberg. Sees Matt Bennett. Pick called. I think it was on Matt Bennett's cut around the
mark
was
picking
on
the dome.
Yes, exactly. Ben Lewis unguarded and drops the disc right around the goal line.
Possibly thinking he might have been able to get in if he was jumping.
Now Bray returns with the big flick huck looking for Smith. That's not completed.
More of that mental war of attrition. Matt Smith is a fast guy. It is hard to outthrow that guy, and that's a good 10 yards past what he was able to get to. That tailwind for Atlanta, taking those forehand shots.
Matt Bennett now picks up. Chris Larberg bobbling the catch, but catches it. Now Ben Lewis to Riggins. Riggins now to Bennett. Bennett over to Jackson. Now over Chris Larberg. Bennett back, flick. Io flick in the air. Matt Jackson with the disc. He can't really go up for that.
He just doesn't have the ability to reach with that right hand. Jump balls are so much harder for him now.
Anders Olsen to Smith. Smith sees his teammate unguarded, and Josh Bush with the goal.
Just an unfortunate misread on the play there. Hogg might have thought he could get the D on this sideline at midfield just because it was hanging so much for Smith, but nobody peeling off the backside to cover the next continuation receiver, and he just waits for it to come to him the entire time. Smith had a very large margin for error on that particular throw.
Good heads-up play there from Josh Bush with that continuation deep cut. So now the score is tied, 13-13, 5:41 left in the third quarter. Atlanta certainly keeping it interesting.
Dallas, I don't know, they've shown energy, but they haven't shown like a consistent string of energy on consecutive points. They need to be able to continue to finish them after they get big breaks, after they get big Ds.
That pole goes out of bounds on the far sideline.
I'll talk to Gaynor. I'll talk to Gaynor. Here we go.
Malachek to or Mazer to get the disc on the brick mark for Dallas, guarded by Boking.
Sean inside. Sean inside.
Now Mickle. Atlanta back in their saggy lane poach D. Dalton Smith on the far sideline works it to Mickle. Mickle looking to get it off of the sideline. Swings it over to Mazer. Back over to Malachek. Gains yards with Mazer. Now it's Smith. Scuber to Coffin. To Smith. And a low backhand to Thomas Slack. But ref calls that up.
Nice reaction time by Thomas Slack, getting underneath that disc and making sure he could secure it. Instantly dropping his legs out from underneath him. He's like, I got to get my torso low enough to get this thing. Think about Atlanta's zone poachy defense or whatnot. They don't put a lot of pressure on the resets for Dallas. They just leave that space open, somewhat dependent on that win to be that 8th defender. They're starting to put those deep defenders further back, knowing Dallas is going to be taking those shots over the top, and Dallas's handlers and resets are getting far more comfortable in the 3rd quarter and the 4th quarter. You've taken a few throws today. You've gotten used to the conditions. If you don't pressure those resets, it just ends up being this really easy point if you're not putting any kind of pressure.
A little more than 5 minutes left in the 3rd quarter. Dallas up 14 to Atlanta's 13. Reed Bacon and Matt Bennett first down on the pole. Tennell with the disc. Tennell flick huck looking for Anders Olsen. And there's the wind.
And to Olsen's credit there, he is a shorter guy, but he is a faster guy. And Tennell putting forehands, just bullets down that side of the field. Clutton is a giant of a man, but he may not be the fastest guy down the field necessarily. So Olsen did what he needed to do to get open.
Now Reed Bacon, the intended target here. The disc is still live, but out of reach for Bacon. Bray picks up over to Vickroy. Vickroy around to Olsen. Olsen to Smith. Smith around to Vickroy. Vickroy now dishes back to Smith. Now Bray up the sideline flick. There's a goal.
And just another example of these unpredictable conditions. As Bennett was going to cut off the angle on that shot, you see the disc literally jump 2 to 3 feet up in the air from the angle it was coming in, and just, you know, sometimes it's good to be lucky on those, but you can't necessarily depend on it. It wasn't a bad throw, but Bennett had a good read on it to possibly make a play, and then it pops up 2 feet and comes right into the defender's hands.
Certainly an instance where the wind helped
the
offense.
It's not always bad. It's random.
So we're tied again, 14-14, 4:06 left. Just about a minute for that point there. Dallas O-line back on the field. Chris Mazer picking up for the Roughnecks. Backhand break there to Marshall, to Slack. Slack with, looks like, got tripped up a little bit. There was a whistle, 10-yard advancement.
Evan, on, Evan! Yeah, Draco!
There's that lefty backhand over to Coffin. Coffin with the layout grab. Sees Dalton Smith. Lots of traffic there. Getting it off the sideline. Mickle now with the disc. Handler give and go between Smith and Mickle. Now to Malachek. And Kai Marshall with that extension grab.
Good concentration by Marshall to get that disc. Looked like the defender was surprised that he didn't get it. It got a little caught up in a gust of wind. Maybe took a bit more of a pop-up than Malachek intended on that particular throw. But Marshall stares at it the whole time, goes both hands, and gets it in front of the defender. If that defender bids, that's far more contention for the disc. But Dallas doing a good job there. Got right next to the end zone, had some confusion, had a cluster. Took 2 or 3 seconds to realize, okay, run the end zone offense, get set up your spacing, had a bunch of resets. Dalton Smith doing really good on the give and goes with Jimmy Mickle on the resets. And they ended up generating just a nice flow right across the field and set it in easy.
Great patience there from Dallas. They take the lead, 15-14, 3:47 left here in the third. An exciting back and forth game here in the Colony.
Yeah. Very interesting. Another roller putting Atlanta on the downwind sideline.
Parker Bray now with the disc for Atlanta. Zach Riggins on the mark. Swings around to Anders Olsen. Olsen breaks over to Leonard. Leonard swings it to Vickroy. Vickroy back to Bray. Now Tennell on the near sideline. Sees Smith. Smith with the scoober to Bush. Bush flick in the air, looking for Vickroy. Extension grab. Ben Lewis covering.
Looks like he might have caught it out of bounds. No, looks like a goal. Very good positioning by the receiver on that one to just make sure that Ben Lewis, who's a big guy and is able to jump and get up in the air, the Atlanta offensive receiver just takes a route where he has position and he goes up making sure that he maintains that position the entire time. Ben Lewis would have to come through and over him in order to get that. Just a really well played deep ball there. Dallas not putting near enough pressure on these around backhand break mark throws, letting Atlanta get over on this near sideline. I mean, with this wind being the cross that it is, pressuring those around throws is more important really because that inside out is a hard throw. We've already seen Atlanta turn it over 3 or 4 times this game.
We're trading points here in the Colony. Dallas back on offense. We're tied at 15. Mazer double team, sees Mickle. Mickle swings around. You can see the wind effect on that throw. Now Dalton Smith with the disc. Back to Mazer. Mazer to Marshall. Marshall to Malachek. Now Thomas Slack dishes to Mickle. Continues to Slack. To Mazer. Swings to Mickle. There's Dalton Smith. Watches it into his hands right outside the end zone. And Brandon Malachek kind of appears at the front cone.
You just lose that guy in the front of the stack. It was very tight space, and Malachek looking to capitalize right there, catching the front of the end zone.
Third assist for Dalton Smith today.
I mean, he is definitely a guy that works in continuation. He'll play off of the current flow of the play, and either if he's not catching the goal, he's definitely a guy that looks for the next continuation within the first couple of seconds. And if he doesn't have it, he resets so that your offense can keep flowing.
So Dallas takes the lead, 16-15, 1:55 left in the third quarter. So far, we've been trading points back and forth. What do you think Dallas really needs to do to try and get a break here?
Well, I mean, they've already gotten the 1 or 2 breaks they needed coming out of half. They currently have the lead, so you can't say the job's done, but they've established a lead right now. They're starting to see those 2 to 3 points per quarter that they need to get a lead and maintain it. Right now, the wind is gusting up. They have all kinds of intensity. You put pressure on this point, you can get your break.
Tennell. That low to Gaynor. Hops up in the air. Reed Bacon blocks that. Pushes it down to the ground. Kevin Christian slowly walking around, but Dallas calls timeout instead.
Another thing you can do is make sure you get breaks on here is get a backfield turn with some good footwork defense and then put your O-line on. A short field.
Dallas O-line certainly happy to use that short field that they have now. No surprise, lots of substitutions on both sides of the disc.
Talked about scoring last at the end of every quarter. It's getting towards that point where you really want to make sure that if you're going to take 20, 30 passes to go this 20, 30 yards, make sure that you only give the other team maybe 10 seconds, 15 seconds to actually take their shot at the end of the game so that they're putting that giant hospital pass with a giant crowd underneath it while you have the luxury of time right now in order to make sure you get that score at the end of the quarter. And if Dallas scores, they will be up by 2 after having been down by 1 to start this quarter.
Certainly an important point here for both teams in terms of tying or Dallas taking that 2-point lead. 1:38 remaining in the third quarter. Wind is certainly gusting, even noticeable here in our broadcast booth. And it was a factor for some of those passes.
Oh, definitely.
Resulted in the turnover from Atlanta.
Some of these passes this game, some of the quick scoobers and the quick little over the top. We've seen probably 4 different push passes going into this Wind, and these are some brave players in that regard.
They're brave, but the push passes have generally seemed to work.
I think they're 100% on push passes today. We should learn something from that.
Hashtag more push passes. You heard it here. Chris Mazer now to tap the disc in for Dallas. Sees Jimmy Mickle. Jimmy Mickle around to Kai Marshall. Marshall resets to Malachek. Malachek, IO backhand to Mickle. Looking at every option, sees Dalton Smith for the goal.
I mean, that was approximately 19 seconds of offense from that timeout into the goal. First couple passes may be a little risky, but at the same time, those throwers know what they're doing. They reset, get back in the middle of the field. Offense sets up your default end zone, and they work towards the break side. That timeout, Atlanta started forcing towards that downwind sideline, and the entire offensive point was played on this near sideline. They were working the break side.
And those are some difficult throws that are completed in order to continue on the break side against a strong defensive team like Atlanta.
I mean, both on the throw and the catch, you never know when that disc is going to be popping up in just a random gust of wind. And on those throws, you can see these throwers taking those pivots and really getting spin on those throws to try and prevent that.
Dallas now up by 2, 1:16 left here in the third quarter. Dylan Tennell with the disc. Flick Huck goes up. Intended for Vickroy, but out of position to complete that.
And you can see with that bank, it just picked up too much and gained too much speed, went right past the receiver and the defender at the same time.
Matt Bennett now to pick up for Dallas. Dallas now needing to work it the entire field. Over the top to Larberg. Larberg with that extended grab. Now Smith with the disc. Blades to Larberg. Larberg with the good hands. Now Jay Frood picks up some trash. Looks for Dalton Smith right outside the end zone.
And another push pass. Keeping it 100%. Throwing those push passes downwind.
Hey, we set the hashtag, so they're listening to us.
He's got the confidence. He's going to take it. It was a perfect situation to lead his receiver with that. You can kind of see Dalton Smith wanting to milk the throw to him into the end zone, but made the more intelligent veteran decision of, you know what, I just need to get this. It's coming in fast. Maybe I could make a hop and get another yard or 2 out of this to get that score. But makes the catch, and then, I mean, he's got Lewis right there, so why not throw a push pass and still make it interesting?
Let's keep those push passes coming the rest of the game. Dallas now taking a 3-point lead, 20 seconds remaining in the third quarter. Jimmy Mickle with the disc to pull for Dallas. Kyle Stapleton catches the pull for Atlanta. Boking now holding the disc. We're at 15, 14, 13 seconds. Olsen centers. Olsen again with the disc. Hammers over the top, out of the reach. And the buzzer sounds. End of the third quarter. Dallas is up by 3. 15 over the Atlanta Hustle. We've got 1 quarter left to play. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll have the 4th quarter here at the Colony 5-Star Sports Complex. We're back here in the Colony 5-Star Sports Complex. I'm Emmy Fitzgerald alongside Paul Burt. Dallas taking their largest lead so far of the game of 3, and we are near the Atlanta sideline. They're firing up that team for the 4th quarter.
They're getting intense down there. Yes, their coach, I mean, there's a few ways you can play the huddle. Their coach is currently opting to let's drive some intensity. You know, it's the end of a doubleheader weekend. We know that it's a bit of a war of attrition, both mentally and physically. He wants his team to get up. He did it with a strategic point. He's like, this is what we were doing in the first half, and it was working. We stopped doing that in the second half. We need to get back to doing that, and that's how we're going to win this game. But when you do it with the tone of voice with the intensity that he had, it drives the point home and gets your players focused on what you need to be doing next.
Certainly firing up the team, so important. The mental game, just so crucial. So even if you're Dallas, yes, you have a 3-point lead, but still can't get too overconfident here.
Oh, yes. I mean, to be playing the mental game, it looks like Dallas is starting off on defense right now. That's almost exactly where you want to be coming into the 4th quarter. When you have a lead, you have the opportunity to get another break. Let's set the tone right now. They're a little upset with themselves. They're getting feisty. They're not playing loose, right? They're not playing with the bubbles anymore. They're not, doing the things that let them loosen up and just play their game. Keep the intensity there. Put the foot on the gas and make sure that these guys stay down and you just drive your lead home.
And if you just joined us, playing with the bubbles were literally bubbles that the Hustle were blowing on the sideline. So cute. The pull goes up, lands out of bounds. Tennell now with the disc for Atlanta. Parker Bray with that initiation cut underneath. Double team. Chris Larberg aggressive on that defense there. Sees Max Leonard. Max Leonard now back to Tennell. Working it with Leonard. Swings out to Vickroy. Vickroy, high flick. Zach Riggins is there for the interception. Some contact on the play. Zach Riggins will keep the disc.
I'm not sure there's a call at all.
I don't think there was a call. I think they were just slow to get up. Matt Bennett now. Scuber, signature. Now Zach Riggins with the bobble. Max Leonard up the line to Bray. Bray resets back to Leonard. Sees Vickroy. Vickroy, flick huck. And diving attempt from Josh Bush.
Very close. Thought it was going to sit up for him again with that bank and that wind pushing the disc up, but it also gave that disc a little bit more speed to get past the receiver.
Josh Bush with some space there, but Dallas now with the disc. Jimmy Mickle sees Chris Larberg unguarded. Larberg on that far sideline. Back to Jackson. Jackson playing left-handed due to his recovering right arm. Matt Bennett sends a firing flick to Zach Riggins for the score.
We talked about that inside-out forehand being a bit of a bait angle, and Matt Bennett is pretty easy to bait on that with his unconventional throws and looking for where's the possible lane I can throw this disc. That was put really well, and the wind kind of calmed down a little bit on that point. It turned into a bit more, it's pushing more our left to our right, so that lets that inside-out forehand just kind of sit up and just stay there for Riggins to read it down. Defender, I don't even think knew it was coming.
Certainly a lot of power there. You could see Zach Riggins was happy to catch that for the score, given his drop, especially earlier in the point. Dallas now with a 4-point advantage over Atlanta. 10:16 remaining to play in the game. Kevin Christian with the disc to pull for Dallas. That floating lefty backhand goes up. Boking picks up. Now to Olsen. Olsen to Sperling. Sperling back to Olsen. Christian Olsen with that top knot. I'm really digging that top knot. Now Boking. Little give and go handler movement in the backfield between Olsen and Boking. Swings around. Kyle Stapleton with the score.
And Dallas there putting a bit more priority on those around break mark passes, but unfortunately leaving Atlanta those opportunities to hit that inside out going down the break side. When you're sitting on this upwind sideline and the force is back towards that downwind sideline, that leaves a lot of angle, a lot of space. And so if the mark just shifts too much, then that inside-out break really isn't even a break mark throw. It's down a four-side lane that just happens to be on this side of the field. And Atlanta really capitalizing from the back of the stack, saying, oh, look, there's a flow towards the side of the field. I'm going to make my cut over there because the defender is playing away from me.
Score now 19-16, Dallas leading. 9:43 remaining in the fourth quarter. Boking with the pull for Atlanta. Brandon Malachek catches the pull over to Mazer. Mazer sees Marshall. Marshall with the on the knees grab. Swings around to Mazer. To Mickle. Mickle swings back to Mazer. Marshall with the slides.
That's 6'5" on his knees grabs. 2 or 3 in a row now.
Probably right at my chest if I was catching it. You have a streaking Mazer, but slack goes back to Smith. Big up and around to Coffin. Coffin skies that with the score.
Dallas just using the full width of the field on that particular point. Atlanta being a little bit clever there, came out with what looked like a lane poach, looked like some kind of zony look, and almost immediately switched into a man. So Dallas thinks, oh, we're going to have easy resets. Let's just try and work it up the field again. And then all of a sudden, you got a man-tight defense on you. They're playing underneath, baiting you to try and throw it with what would be a tailwind for Dallas at that point, thinking they'll just take a shot and maybe, make one of those uncharacteristic errors they've made in the first half. Dallas having the composure, got their resets, and found lanes as they worked down the field.
They move the lead back up to 4 now, 20-16, just under 9 minutes left in the game. Anders Olsen trying to stay out of the way of the pull there. Dylan Tennell over to Taylor. Taylor then to Bray. Bray swinging up and around, out of reach. Zach Riggins with the interception. Bennett now to Frood. Frood to Bennett. To Larberg. Larberg to Lewis. That's a score.
And you see guys like Chris Larberg, Matt Bennett, Jay Frood working that give-go offense after they get themselves a D. Larberg is not typically known as a thrower. I mean, Bennett may be, but Larberg not necessarily. But he is super comfortable catching that disc, making the next throw, and then looking to be the next target. You know, just constantly making a defender have to chase him while also paying attention to 2-3 other factors, and it's just so hard for a defense to recover from that.
That score was Larberg's 3rd assist of the game today.
Typically a receiver and not necessarily the thrower for the goals.
Impressive, especially given on the D-line. Chris Mazer now to pull for Dallas. The lead is now at 5, 8:24 left in the 4th quarter. Boking catches the pull for Atlanta, centers to Stapleton. Stapleton to Lawley. Now back to Stapleton. To Olsen. Bidding D. Out of reach of Sperling. Mazer now picking up. To Kevin Christian. Now Clutton with the disc. And Clutton's asking for a foul, but the ref says, no, that's a clean block. Boking now with the disc to Olsen, to Choi. Striking Olsen, and a little give and go to Choi. Choi runs that down for the score.
One thing Atlanta has always done is they want to go down the foreside, down the foreside, down the foreside, down the foreside until you force them to go to the break side. They will absolutely take, hey, you know what? You're gonna let our guys get open on this side. We're going to go to this side. Free throws there, and they just quick 2, 3, 4 passes. And again, it's that give and go offense. Dallas defense, just as much as Atlanta's defense, has trouble recovering on that kind of a thing. Backfield turn, especially for Dallas.
Atlanta keeping it close. Dallas with the lead, though, 21-17, 7:29 remaining to play in the game. We're so glad you're joining us. Our player of the game currently on the field for Dallas, number 13, Dalton Smith. 5 assists and 4 goals.
It's a very versatile player and really making his presence felt today.
We have the ginger handler set right now for the Dallas offense. Jimmy Mickle, though, with the disc at the moment. Malachek centering, hammer to Marshall, and Marshall with the one-handed grab.
The scoop while he loops.
Now Dalton Smith with the disc to Mickle. Up and over to Coffin. To Mazer, to Slack. Slack looking for his options, opting to reset to Mickle. Now Dalton Smith right outside the end zone, and with an assist, our player of the game.
Just tacking another one on.
6th assist to Brandon Malachek, who has just had his 3rd goal of the game.
It's really kind of a topsy-turvy day. The wind constantly switching. It's been gusting to 25, 30 miles an hour. It's been as calm as 10 to 15 miles an hour. And one of the things about Dalton Smith, he's a really adaptable player, and he's a player that's going to figure out what works in the current conditions. That may be this current hour. That may be this current 5 seconds. And that's one of the reasons he's been getting so many goals and getting so many assists today is because he's throwing those push passes. Well, if the push pass was going to work for this 5 seconds, that was just the throw, and the wind was at my back. I knew exactly what I needed to do.
And that does take very skilled players to be able to balance the decision-making with the execution, something that so many struggle with. 6:39 left to go in the game. It's a high disc, and Matt Bennett skying Dylan Tennell, gets it to Chris Larberg.
The rare Matt Bennett sky. It was very impressive, though. I'm sure he's happy to get that one back after the last time that Dylan Tennell and Matt Bennett played against each other in the previous meeting of these teams. Dylan Tennell may have had a posterization of Matt Bennett, and now it's kind of even tables.
Now 23-17, Dallas leading. .6:31 left to play in the game. Chris Mazur now to pull for Dallas. Christian Olsen really tracking down that pull. Boking now with the disc. Atlanta kind of working it up that far sideline. Blade over to Choi. You could tell Boking was hesitant about catching it. Tie disc though.
So they need to replace the disc after landing on top of it.
Oh yeah, that disc certainly warped due to all the effort there on that play. An overthrow from Atlanta. Now Dallas knocking on the door. Mazur picking up. And intended for Joel Clutton, but a layout D from Atlanta instead.
Definitely playing intense goal line defense.
There was a contact call. Now Boking advances 10 yards, gets it off the line to Bray. Now over Joel Clutton, causing some commotion. That disc falls on the ground. Holleran now to Christian. Christian back to Holleran. Sees Reed Bacon for the score.
Kind of an interesting series of events there. I believe Christian was looking for Bacon on his throw, but Holleran happened to be in the lane and said, you know what, let's take 2 passes to get this distance. It's okay to go maybe 10 yards at a time instead of trying to sneak that 25-yard throw in there. Dallas defense definitely changing their strategy overall, or at least changing the way that they play. Early on in the game, we saw them get almost too positional with their defense, almost too much playing off the guy and just feeling out where Atlanta wanted to go and trying to cut off lanes. Now, far more intense, playing on their guy, really tight. And, whether if you get beat by a good cut, the guy still has to work in order to generate that space, to generate that opening. Whereas if you're playing positionally and you just happen to play off in the wrong lane or off too far, they maybe get a quick sneak throw, which their throwers, who are good throwers, are going to be able to hit that shot. So now playing closer, far more intense man defense. Dallas putting pressure on Atlanta, especially when they have this deficit now.
So Dallas 24, Atlanta 17, 4:52 remaining in the game. There was a timeout called, which is why we have a little bit more time in between points than normal. You can see the Atlanta huddle just trying to maintain the energy and the confidence and the poise. Hustle, if you will. Maintain that hustle.
Get their hustle back. I mean, at this point in the game, you're down by a significant margin. The other team's on a run. You've been getting upset with yourself. And the thing is, you don't want to end a game just being upset with yourself and seeing like, well, we're screwing this up, we're screwing that up, we can't figure out the one thing we need to fix, because there's 5 different things we need to fix. So you calm yourselves down, you break the bubbles back out, you start playing loose again, and hopefully your offense can get into a flow and start scoring points again.
Definitely so. So both teams on the line in advance of the timeout ending. Matt Bennett to pull for Dallas. That pull goes up. Max Leonard receives, centers it to Tennell. Tennell was looking for Anders Olsen, instead finds Vickroy. Vickroy to Taylor. Taylor then to Smith. Double teamed. Scoobers over the top to Tennell. Tennell, big backhand, looking for Leonard.
I was going to say by the end of this game that Leonard had not been involved in a turnover as of yet, that rock foundation of consistency. I'm not going to hold that one against him, but.
Injury timeout called. Casey Hogg leaving the field for Dallas. Chris Mazer coming on instead. Tennell also leaving. JP Burns entering the field instead for Atlanta. Mazer now with the disc to Lewis. Lewis over to Riggins. Riggins to Bennett. Up and around to Larberg. Turfs to
Just
Lewis.
Didn't have his balance on that one.
Leonard picks up to Vickroy now. We'll give and go. Handler movement. Bush with the disc. We'll switch on Dallas with the marks. Now Olsen. And foot block from Chris Mazer. eBay with the big backhand. Needed a little more float, though, to get that to Mazer.
Yeah, the wind is still pushing from our tower to the other side of the field. That inside-out angle just got pushed down.
Can tell both teams are tired. You can see them struggling.
Yes, you see the
with
fatigue on their
sprinting.
faces.
Olsen swinging around to Leonard. Leonard back to Olsen. Anders Olsen over. Around. Bush with the diving attempt, incomplete.
Atlanta generating much more difficult looks for themselves than they have to. Those 3 throws in a row. There's 2 saves, and the third time's the charm. Didn't quite save that last one.
A whistle on the play. Timeout, Dallas Roughnecks. Right before Matt Bennett threw the goal. The would-be goal.
The would-be goal to Chris Larberg. Little disappointed, but it is the conservative play. You really can't hold it against the sideline on that one.
Conserving some greatness there.
Especially after a grinder of a point like this so far.
Dan Emmons with the clipboard for Dallas today. Coach Pat Eberly not in attendance.
Yeah, I believe he's out of town this week.
And Dan Emmons recovering from a hamstring injury suffered a few weeks ago, probably 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago.
I believe it was during the Atlanta game, the last time when they were on the road. Yes, so a long time. He's still in the midst of his rehab and encountering difficulties along the way. I think he, while doing a rehab bike ride to make sure he's easing back onto his legs, that he may have been hit by a car. It was a bit of an interesting accident. Yes, he's a sturdy guy. I don't think it affected his hamstring, but at the same time,
you should see the car.
It is tough. Yeah, tough to catch a break for that guy.
Well, certainly in great spirits today. Brandon Malachek coming on the field for Dallas. Mostly an O-line, but Kevin Christian is on. He's typically on the D-line, goofing around a little bit with Sun Choi. These guys play against each other so much, and the Ultimate community is so small. You have someone move that it's not uncommon that a lot of these teams facing each other have played together as well.
Oh, yeah.
Kai Marshall with the disc. Big flick looking for Jimmy Mickle. Dallas score.
And Kai Marshall taking a shot for about 30, 40 yards. He shows that at least once a game he has got this clean. If you give him a clean lane, he's got a nice, clean shot. Hits Jimmy in stride. No big deal for that guy.
Second assist for Kai Marshall. That puts Dallas's lead to 7-5. Math is hard right now to 8.
It's all right. War of attrition. Make it through the entire game.
Dallas is up 25-17. 2:25 remaining
There
in
we
the
go.
fourth quarter.
And we see, if we talk about war of attrition, both, mentally and physically, Dallas is pushing the issue. They're gaining more breaks.
My journalism degree coming to great use today. Dylan Tennell now with the disc. Matt Smith finds Turner. Over to Leonard. Now to Bush. Back to Leonard. Swinging around to Matt Smith, known as Matty by his teammates. Vickroy in the center of the field. Under to Taylor. Just working it up the sideline. Taylor with the goal.
And Atlanta pushing towards that far sideline. It looked like Dallas forcing righty forehand towards that away sideline. Wind picking up, pushing the disc that way. But Atlanta is going to play that game. They're like, look, you want us to go that way? We'll go that way. And it looked like Kevin Christian, the defender on Taylor there, was hoping that his defender teammate would roll off just to get that, stop that line strike. But it didn't happen, and Atlanta's like, all right, we're going to take this free goal.
We are under 2 minutes remaining in the game. Dallas up 25 over Atlanta's 18. And you can see both teams fatigued, but Dallas O-line back on the field. Jay Frood on for offense now. He's typically played defense this week, has played on the O-line in other games.
Already has 2 or 3 Ds this game.
Certainly a threat on both sides of the disc, as is Jimmy Mickle. Now Chris Mazer. And that disc is up. Mickle over to Frood, back to Mazer. Swings around to Coffin. Coffin up the sideline to Malachek. To Smith. Over to Mazer. Mickle unguarded. Backs up to catch that. Swing pass. Now sees Mazer. Lots of pivots from Mazer to find Dalton Smith.
They're very comfortable just sitting back right now. There's only about a minute to burn left in this game, and you're not pressuring their resets.
44 seconds on the clock. Jay Frood to Coffin. Now over to Mickle. Tracking it down, Mazer catches the disc. 25 seconds. Atlanta is still covering some, also playing some lanes, letting those resets off. Mickle with the hammer over top, pinpoint to Smith, finds Jay Frood.
As soon as I was going to comment on, 25 seconds, that's only maybe four or five completions to reset. We just run this game out. Jimmy decides, you know what? We're going to finish this on a bang and take that shot over the top.
How about that hammer from Mickle to Dalton Smith? Atlanta defender there, but Smith able to maintain that great eye contact on the disc, make that completion, and there you have Jay Frood for the score.
And that's just spreading the field again. Frood being on the opposite side. Defender has to play all the way over to try and get that D. And Frood's just an easy next continuation because there are no other defenders in the deep space.
6.4 seconds left on the clock. Dallas 26, Atlanta 18. Ashton Lewis and Matt Hudspeth hustling down on the pole. Tunnell holding. Will he throw it? It doesn't seem like he will. And that's game. We have a final score, 26-18. Dallas with their win over the Hustle.
Feeling very confident right now. You know, at the beginning of this game, there was a lot of this kind of like unspoken uncertainty about like, well, Jacksonville got a win over Dallas and Raleigh got a win over Dallas and Atlanta is a talented team. Like, how vulnerable is Dallas? How many teams can run points on these guys? How many guys can, steal a game basically from Dallas? And maybe it's not even stealing a game. They actually play really well. You play your game and get those points that you know you're going to score. Maybe Dallas is just a very beatable team. Dallas reaffirming to themselves today that they are a very top talent team and they're going to make sure they finish games.
And Dallas and Atlanta will play one more time here at home on June 24th, which is unusual, but they will play 3 times versus the 2 they played in the regular season last year. Dallas will then go to Madison for a cross-divisional game on June 3rd, so that will certainly be an interesting look for them. So now, if you are Dallas, what do you do to then keep in this success mindset and really just kind of build additional momentum for the rest of the season?
I mean, the way that this game ended is probably the best case scenario that Dallas could have asked for. They righted the ship. They started out down. They were at the beginning of the second half. They were losing still. They were down by a point. They started to get a couple more breaks coming into the third quarter. They got even more breaks in the fourth quarter. Proved they can finish games. Really put the pressure on Atlanta. Made some defensive adjustments that let them finish the game. And you can ride that into the next week. It's like at the end of last weekend, after 2 losses, it's kind of jarring. It's how you react to it. How do you get back focused on what you need to fix? This time, all right, we built some momentum now. We've got a good, solid win over a talented team. Let's lead into the next game with that.
Definitely so. So congrats to Dallas on their win over Atlanta. We'd like for you to join us on social media all throughout the week. We're on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, and Instagram. We'll have an interview with our player of the game, Dalton Smith. Also have various highlights and just all kinds of fun content so that you can follow your team when we're not here broadcasting a game. So for Paul Burt, I'm Emmy Fitzgerald. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.